When staring down an eldritch horror in Elden Ring, sometimes the best thing you can do is just punch it in the face. That's the beauty of the Dryleaf Arts. Equip these on your character, and before you know it, your fists and feet will fly with unbridled fury. They may not be the most powerful weapons to build around, but they are some of the most fun new options available early in the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC. We're going to show you where to get them and some of the best ways to build around them. The Dryleaf Arts turns your tarnished into a martial arts master. While trading a massive sword for bare-knuckle brawling in a world filled with horrible monsters might seem counterintuitive, there are some benefits to it. These attacks fly fast and can easily stunlock many enemies under a barrage of punches and kicks. They also do solid poise damage, especially the jump kicks, setting you up for devastating critical hits. It's also a strong option to apply status-based damage like bleed, as every one of the rapid-fire hits adds to the status accumulation. There are two main weaknesses to using these. First, as one would expect, the range is pretty limited. That's no problem when you get up close to most enemies, but particularly colossal baddies can be tough to reach at times. Second, builds for this will generally favor lighter armor and no shield, so if you aren't on point with your dodge rolls, it can be easy to die very quickly. But if you've got the courage to get up close and the skill to avoid damage, this is an exceptionally fun weapon to use. The Dryleaf Arts belong to Dryleaf Dane, an NPC in the Land of Shadow. To find him, you will first need to make your way through Castle Ensis, northeast of the Scorched Village across the Elec Great Bridge. There is a fight against Rolana waiting for you. After which, doors leading to the Skadu Altus region open up. Or you can skip Castle Ensis and get right to the Skadu Altus by following this path down to the Poison Swamp to the southeast of the castle front site of Grace. Keep an eye out for the Spirit Spring that is blocked by a couple of rocks. From here, use the nearby wind tunnels to reach the Fort of Reprimand. From here you can jump over the edge to reach the main path of Skadu Altus. Look to the near Michaelis Cross next to the High Road Cross site of Grace and interact with the objects on the ground to get the May the Best Win emote and the Monk's Missive, which reads, "Seek me to the east if you wish to pursue the way of the warrior. When you find me, you will challenge me to a bout. There will be no need for words." From the High Road Cross site of Grace, head north until you reach a fork in the road, then head southeast until you reach the Morth Ruins site of Grace. Dryleaf Dane will be standing right by the nearby Michaelis Cross. Dane's not just going to give you his arts, however. You will need to win them off of him in a duel. To start the fight, approach him and perform the May the Best Win emote. This will transport you to an enclosed arena to fight against the speedy martial artist. Emerge victorious and the Dryleaf Arts will be waiting for you near Michaelis Cross. The Dryleaf Arts are extremely versatile, with many different choices for Ashes of War and affinities. There are quite a few good options. You could spec into heavy affinity using something like Golden Slam, which will give these A scaling with strength at high levels for consistent high damage. Bleed is another great option thanks to the high attack rate, particularly if you equip the Lifesteal Fist Ash of War, which lets you steal health from human enemies. But for this build, we're going to focus on Frostbite. This status effect builds over repeating hits, and when it reaches its maximum, it does a large chunk of instant damage. Once procced, it also slows the enemy and lowers their damage resistance by 20%. That creates a fantastic window to pummel them and makes it easier to dodge their counterattacks. We're going to start by swapping out the default Palm Blast Ash of War with the Braggart's Roar with Ice Affinity. When activated, your character lets out a roar and receives buffs to damage, damage negation, and stamina recovery. It also replaces the standard heavy attack with a charging running overhead strike, which is excellent for breaking guards and can stun many enemies that are normally unaffected by your punches and kicks. The Braggart's War Ash is on the Iron Ball, which belongs to Blackguard Big Bogart. You can either kill him yourself or complete the Dung Eater's questline, in which the Dung Eater does the job for you and you can liberate it off Bogart's remains. Next, we'll equip the Great Turtle Shell shield in our offhand, but we won't actually use it. Instead, we will dual-wield our hands. Sure, the fact that wearing a giant turtle shell on our back gives the martial arts build Master Roshi vibes, and let's be honest, that's reason enough, there is a little bit of method to this madness. The rapid attacks and fast dodges of this setup consume a lot of stamina, and having the Great Turtle Shell equipped, even if it's not in use, bestows a constant boost to stamina regeneration. You can find this shield atop a tower right next to the Castle Morn Rampart in Limgrave. Next, we need some talismans. First up will be either the Rotten Winged Sword Insignia or Millicent's Prosthesis. You will get one of these at the end of Millicent's questline depending on whether you choose to aid her and her sisters at the end. These both boost your damage after repeated blows, which works great with the fast combos of this weapon. Now let's add the Ritual Sword Talisman. This increases damage while your health is full, which, if you are performing dodges, should be most of the time. You get this off the demi-human Queen Gillica, the optional boss of the Lux Ruins near the Altus Plateau Site of Grace. Now we're going to use the Shattered Stone Talisman, which is new in the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC. This increases damages from kicks and stomps, which, given how much kicking the Dryleaf Arts calls for, means it applies a lot of the time. You find this at the Morth Ruins, behind this collapsed building on this body. Finally, add in the Dragon Crest Great Shield Talisman. Yes, we said you would be dodging more attacks, but the Dryleaf Arts calls for an aggressive approach, and there will be some blows that sneak through even with the best defense. This will greatly reduce that incoming damage. You get this from a chest in the Halig Tree, shortly after the Drainage Channel Site of Grace. As with most in-game builds, it's a good idea to target at least 50 vigor. You should look to investing in endurance as well, since every punch, kick, and dodge will drain your stamina. Assuming you're at least level 150, you should be able to safely invest a good 25 to 30 points here. The Cold Dryleaf Arts scale best with intelligence, followed by dexterity and strength, so points should be allocated in that order. The return on investment does start to diminish after a while, so a target of 50 intelligence, 40 strength, and 40 dexterity is very effective. From there, consider adding extra points in mind for the extra FP to cast Braggart's Roar. Finally, it may be worth bringing your faith up to 15, which allow you to use the Flame Grant Me Strength incantation, which adds additional attack and stamina bonuses that stack with Braggart's Roar, which can be handy when you know you're going into a tough fight. For armor, you should target a medium or light load to ensure the dodge roll has a fast enough recovery. The Jump Heavy attack is a great opener for the Dryleaf Arts set, so the jump attack bonus off the Raptor's black feathers is an appealing option. Dane's hat is great for style points, but otherwise the strongest armor that is light enough to keep you away from a heavy load is going to be the best bet. Now that our Tarnished is a certified lethal weapon, it's time to get into some fights. Generally, there are two main approaches. For enemies with lower poise, like most foot soldiers or these scorpion spider things, a sprint kick or jump kick followed by a barrage of attacks is enough to end fights quickly. In some cases, light attacks are enough for stun locking. Other times you may be pressing the heavy attack button repeatedly. For enemies that are less amenable for letting you wail on them, it's better to focus on quick hit and run tactics. Ideally, dodge to get close, unleash a few rapid blows, then dodge again. The goal is primarily to chip away at their health and activate Frostbite or Stagger, which is your cue to press the attack. For bosses and other particularly tough targets, don't forget to activate your Braggart's Roar and any other buffs you might have. For more ways to tear through your enemies in Elden Ring's Shadow of the Erdtree DLC, make sure to check out our growing IGN wiki. And of course, for everything else Elden Ring, make sure to stick with IGN.